This is the Smart Poker Study Podcast for players who are always striving to be better today than they were yesterday. Through strategy discussions, Q&As, and Poker Pro interviews, we'll dive deep into everything related to poker tactics, study techniques, and the mental side of the game. All in an effort to improve your skills, maximize your profits, and to make you a lifelong successful player. This podcast is brought to you by SmartPokerStudy.com, and I'm your host, Sky Matsuhashi. Poker people, make sure you listen to episode 7, where I talked about 30-day challenges and how to use them to build healthy habits into your life and to achieve worthwhile goals. Hey poker people, it's hump day and day 2 of my 30-day challenge to release a new podcast every day. It's raining here in Fresno, so you might hear some raindrops coming through your earbuds, but don't worry about that, ignore it, just listen to the dulcet tones of my voice. Today's strategy episode is near and dear to my heart, as I discuss something that I've gained lots of benefit from over the years, or maybe over the past year and a half or so, but it's something that other people just don't incorporate into their games, or they just don't know about, and that's using focus sessions to work on one skill at a time to ingrain into our games. And so a focus session is when you stay away from the 10, 12, 24 tabling that you do, and you stick with 1 to 3 tables in that range where you can focus on building one new skill. But before we really dive into focus sessions, I want to start this podcast by discussing the adult learning model and how we build skills to the level of unconscious competence. Now, if those two terms are gobbledygook to you, I completely understand. I'll go into them in more detail. Just remember for now, adult learning model and unconscious competence. And then after that, I'll go more into detail into focus sessions, and I'll give you the 5 steps to getting the most out of them. I'll end the episode with a great challenge that you will find, I guarantee you'll find very rewarding. And as always, everything I discuss here will be in the show notes for this episode, which you can find and follow along at smartpokerstudy.com/8. Now here it is, today's podcast mission. My mission is to teach you how to use focus sessions to systematically add new skills into your repertoire through focused, concentrated, deliberate play at the tables. Alright, so I've got a couple questions for you. Do you feel your game has stagnated, or has it ever stagnated? Are you having a hard time adding new skills or plays into your game? Are you putting in study sessions, but not able to put into play the techniques you're working on? If your answer to that right now is yes, or if it's ever been a yes, I know exactly what you need, and we'll get into that in this episode. I know that for myself and for many players, when we start a session of poker, we often just load up the usual number of tables, whatever that is. For me right now, it's between 6 and 8 tables, and we start playing our normal game. But when we do this, we can go on autopilot sometimes, and while that can be a bad thing, we're just relying on our unconscious competence to guide us through the session and to make our decisions. So unconscious competence is something I learned in Jared Tendler's book called The Mental Game of Poker. It's a great book, and I learned a ton about the mental game, about tilt, avoiding tilt, and all that stuff from it. The idea is that unconscious competence happens when you've learned a skill so well that you can perform it automatically, even while you're concentrating on other things. So some examples of unconscious competence in poker are auto-folding 7 deuce off, on one table while you're contemplating a flop check raise on another. Maybe you're stealing as the big stack on the money bubble versus 2 players in the blinds who are super nitty and fold quite often. So decisions like that just come automatically. We see a situation, bam, we react, we know what we're doing. We can focus on other things at the same time. And building skills to that level, to the level of unconscious competence, is key to a poker player's improvement. So the question I want to ask you now is, how do we build skills to the level of unconscious competence? Well, to get to that answer, I want to back up real quick and talk about the adult learning model. The unconscious competence is part of that model, and this is the process of learning that we all go through. Jared Tendler, in that same book, he didn't create this idea, but he did talk about it quite in detail within the mental game of poker. And it's a theory of learning that's been around for a really long time, but he did relate it to poker for us in his book. There are 4 distinct levels of learning within this process of the adult learning model. So Number 1 is the unconscious incompetence. This is where we don't even know what we don't know. We're ignorant of the skills that we lack because we don't even know that they exist for other people. As a poker example of this, Let's say we just started playing and we think that luck wins out, that it's just the flop, turn, river, and your cards that determine the winner. That's what unconscious incompetence is. You don't know that betting, bluffing, raising to steal, whatever the case is, all these different plays even exist because you're just starting. You're completely ignorant. The second level of the adult learning model is conscious incompetence. Now we know a bit more of what we don't know. We understand that there's skill involved and we need to build specific skills into our game. So another poker example of this is we know that we need to employ 3-bets and c-bets because these can take down pots, but maybe we don't know how to do them effectively just yet. The third step of the adult learning model is conscious competence. So reaching this level means that we've done some work and we have added some skills to our game through repetition, through practicing them, but we have to actively be thinking about what we're doing as we're doing it. So at this point, nothing is natural. We have some skill, but if our mind is preoccupied with other thoughts or we're just not concentrating, these skills just up and vanish and we can't use them. In poker, it's like having to actively think about bet sizing, opponent type and his stats, and maybe further possible action, all before 3-betting or c-betting in each individual spot. And the holy grail of the adult learning model is level 4, the unconscious competence. This is what we've already discussed just a little bit. But just to break it down a little further, at this level, we're a skilled player. Things feel natural, and we have to barely think at all before we make the 3-bet or the c-bet or the river fold or the river check raise, whatever the case is. It's rather instinctual at this point, and poker feels much more simplified because we have to concentrate a whole lot less to employ the skills that we've learned. So the goal is to build skills to the level of unconscious competence, where we act instinctively and are able to employ our skills without much thought or concentration. It doesn't mean we play robotically and we're not thinking. It's just that some decisions become so routine that we could just make them without much concentration. All right, so that's the goal. Ingrain things to the level of unconscious competence, which brings us to the reason for this podcast, discussing focus sessions. A focus session gives you more time to think through your actions and consider all the relevant information before you hit that raise or fold or call button. This is working within the conscious competence, which is the third level of the adult learning model. These focus sessions, give you more time to make decisions because you've cut down on the number of tables that you're playing. 12 tabling doesn't allow your mind the time to actively think deeply about each situation that you're involved in. So trying to ingrain new skills in your game is damn near impossible when you're being bombarded by decisions to make one after the other. Even when you have to fold 7 deuce and 9-6 and jack 5 offsuit, those take up that tiny little bit of amount of time. So when you're 12 tabling, it limits all the other time that you have to concentrate. Your main goal in each focus session should be to put into action these newly developing skills that you're working on, that you're studying, one at a time. You're trying to train something into your unconscious competence, which takes a lot of dedicated effort to do so. A focus session of just 2 to 4 tables, if you normally, are a 12 tabler, will give you plenty of time to look for spots to incorporate the new skills and techniques into your play, and it'll give you time to weigh more factors in your decision, such as player stats, the reads on the player, his possible range, table dynamics, situational factors, all that jazz. So let's say, for example, you want to work on your c-bet game. Then you probably need to pay utmost attention to some of the following things, and you might need some extra time to do so. So these things might be, who will be your likely opponents on the flop? Their flop and turn stats, fold to c-bet, raise, c-bet, check raise, fold to donk bet, all that stuff. Have a plan in place for the turn and river before you make your bet, your raise, your call on the flop. The last thing you might want to consider is the table or tournament conditions and how they might affect your opponent's play at the given time. And, I didn't mention it, but your opponent's state of mind as well. So reads on the opponent. All right, so we've gone to a bit about focus sessions and why we use them to ingrain new skills. Let's talk about 5 steps to effective poker focus sessions. So keep in mind that focus sessions are all about having more time for decision making and training skills into your unconscious competence. And so I've got 5 steps to effective focus sessions for you.
Number 1.
Proper warm-up. I discussed warming up in episode 5, so if you missed that, go back and listen to it. You should be working on one new skill in each session you play, regardless of it being a focus or volume session. So study the notes that you're taking within your warm-up. This will keep the skill top of mind, and you can refer to your notes as you play your session.
Number 2.
Limit the number of tables. Fire up just 3 to 4 tables maximum, and I think 2 is preferable for me. My focus sessions are always 2 tables. So if you're currently only multi-tabling 4 to 6 tables, just fire up 1 or 2. If you're, 8 or more, maybe 3, maybe 4 tables, that's up to you, but you want to make sure you have the time to actively think through every decision and to try to find instances where you can employ this new skill that you're working on.
Number 3.
Record your session. You want to create your own game tape and speak through your thought process aloud clearly for each decision that you make. And actually, I'll talk about game tape in episode 11 in just a few days from now. I've got that one planned. Haven't recorded it yet, but I've got it planned. But for now, use a screen capture program and a microphone to record your focus session. Speak through your thought process as you play. You want to kind of detail reasons for each action or decision that you make. You don't want to just see yourself when you replay the game tape. You don't want to just see yourself clicking buttons and not speaking, not thinking, not actively thinking through your decisions. This game tape really aids in post-session review and in dissecting your play the next day.
Number 4.
Keep a notepad available. You want to always have a notepad and a pen to record necessary observations and hands that you want to review. You can also use your poker tracking software hand marking features, of course. Do that as well. But keep that notepad handy in case you want to make any other notes other than just tagging a hand. You'll also want to record situations that kind of baffle you for later analysis or ideas for future areas of study, because as we're playing, a circumstance that you're not even thinking about might happen. And you might realize, hey, I need to learn more about this. Take a note for further study in the future.
Number 5.
Post-session review. You'll want to conduct your post-session review the next day. Don't do it immediately after your session, as you need some time away from it so that you can look at your plays more objectively. Also, review your notes, any marked hands in your poker tracking software, and watch that game tape. Create a list of things to target in your next focus session by watching these and doing these things and making notes on what you're messing up, what you need to work on a little bit further. Alright, so just to recap, the 5 steps to effective poker focus sessions is a proper warm-up. Number 2 was limit the number of tables. 3 was record your session. Number 4 was having a notepad and a pen available for taking notes. And number 5 was doing a post-session review the next day, not immediately following. And that's it. Start incorporating focus sessions to build your skills to the level of unconscious competence, and you'll be on your way. You'll see more success on the felt, and things will feel like they're coming much easier to you. I do 1 focus session in every 4 sessions that I play, and admittedly, this does cut down a little bit on the hands that I play each week, but working on adding new skills is more important to me right now than grinding out more hands. They're both important, but I feel that there's a lot of things that I'm lacking, a lot of leaks that I'm trying to fix, a lot of new skills at these new levels that I'm playing that I need to incorporate into my game, and then so that's why I'm continually doing those focus sessions as well. Challenge! Here's my challenge to you for this episode. Make your next session a focus session. Choose a skill you're working on and look for spots to put it to use. Give yourself more time by playing less tables than normal, take notes as you play, and record the session. Make sure to review the entire session the next day to see how well you employed your new skill. Now it's your turn to take action and do something positive for your poker game.
Oh, that's it now. Get out there and be somebody. Go write a book.
Alright, just to recap the episode, we discussed a lot of things. We discussed the adult learning model, Jared Tendler's book, The Mental Game of Poker. We touched on that just a tiny bit. And actually, that is such an important book. I think I might have to do a podcast on it at some point. Yes, without a doubt, I will. Let me make a note of that. Alrighty, after the adult learning model and unconscious competence, we talked about the logistics of focus sessions, and I gave you 5 steps to getting the most out of your focus sessions. And I ended with a great challenge that I hope you take me up on. If you do take me up on it, shoot me an email, tell me how it went. I want to know what skill you were purposefully trying to work on in that poker focus session, and I want to know how well it went. So please go to the show notes at smartpokerstudy.com/8 for links to everything mentioned here. Now it's time for a poker review. Today's review is on The Goonies. That's right, the classic 1980s movie, The Goonies. I watched it just the other day with my kids, and it has become their favorite movie. They love it, absolutely love it. They were a little scared of that character Sloth, for the first few minutes, but he became one of their favorites. They love Mikey, they love Mouth, they love Data, they love Chunk, they love them all, and they just cannot get enough of it. They're 8 and 6 years old, and it's a killer movie for them. I actually mentioned it in the newsletter last week, just that, my kids are watching it, it's their new favorite movie. We watched it every single day for like 10, 11 days now in a row, give or take, and it's just an incredible movie. If you have not seen it, you've got to go get it. Get it on iTunes. Actually, it's on YouTube. If you just if you go into YouTube and just put in the search bar Goonies, you can watch that for free. Classic 80s movie, some great acting, a fun story, and it was an awesome adventure. The reason why I played it for the kids is because for some reason the other day, I was thinking back to when I was a kid, and when I was my oldest son's age, at about 8 years old, I was at home one day with the chicken pox, and the Goonies just came out on VHS. My mom went and rented it, and while I was at home all day, my brother was at school, so bummer for him, but while I was at home all day, I watched it 3 times in a row. Watched it, rewound, watched it again, and I absolutely loved it. So I wanted to see how my kids responded to it, and they loved it just like I did. It's amazing. If you have kids, watch it with them. If you don't have kids, go watch it by yourself. If you have a wife or a husband, go watch it with him or her. Whatever. You're going to have a ton of fun. It was a killer movie, and I highly, highly recommend it. Alrighty, thank you so much for listening today. Send me your constructive feedback through the show notes page at smartpokerstudy.com/8. You can also send me an email to sky@smartpokerstudy.com. Tweet me at smartpokerstudy or post in the Facebook group at smartpokerstudy.com/discuss. And of course, as always, I need your questions for the Friday Q&A episodes. Please send them to me through all the channels just mentioned. Plus, if you've got an idea for a future podcast topic, let me hear it. Shout it at me, whatever you've got to do. I want to know what you want. All right, and we've got another great review from iTunes here. Ken Liu says, great analysis, easy to understand, 5 stars. So this is a really good poker study podcast. Sky gives great advice and makes it super easy to understand. I learned something new each episode, even though I've been playing poker for a while. So thank you so much, Ken. I really appreciate you sending that awesome review in for me. It's so cool of you. So to everybody else, please subscribe to the Smart Poker Study podcast through your favorite podcast app. Give it a heart, some stars, a thumb, whatever it allows, and leave a review to help others discover the show. Alrighty, poker people, be sure to listen to tomorrow's episode number 9, where I discuss volume sessions and how to get the most out of them to make the monies for the honeys. Word of mouth is the best advertising, and a recommendation from you to your friends would be most appreciated. If you enjoyed our time together today, and if you learned a little something, please share it with one of your buds. Until next time, study smart, play hard, and make your next session the best one yet.